What is up, heroes of Dominion? My name is Charlie. This is Hero Wars Central, and in this video, I answer a very frequently asked question: how best to level up your artifacts, where to focus on. Should you focus on your tank, your healer, your damage dealer, your support? And while this video is a discussion of artifacts based on the Treasures of the Valkyries event that's live on Hero Wars Mobile, this conversation, this discussion, this strategy will apply to all versions of Hero Wars. And before we get into the video, I have an opinion. This is my opinion. This is my leveling strategy. There are many like it. And of course, there are dozens of exceptions in this game, depending on your 5-hero team makeup. All right. So what I'm about to tell you isn't going to work for everybody, but generally speaking, this is how I answer the question: how is the best way to level up your hero's artifacts? Please watch to the very end if you want to support the channel fully. If you want to go a little bit further, please consider clicking that like button. It only takes about 2 seconds, and while I haven't given you any information yet, if you go ahead and do it now, you won't forget to do it later. I love you all. Good luck in Dominion.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Exuvium asks, so you'd recommend maxing out the artifacts on your main team before touching them on secondary teams? So this is a great question. Let's discuss best practices for leveling up artifacts. Let's go ahead and get into that part of this conversation, right? We have the event where we can get the resources. You can also get the resources from opening artifact chests. You can also get the resources from doing your expeditions every single day. One of the things that you should be doing every day as a matter of habit or routine is making sure you constantly have expeditions going, because of the sheer volume of items that you need, very much like the skins. So with every hero on your team, and I'm talking about your primary team here, not your secondary team. Let's start with the primary team first. I want to get every first artifact to 3 stars or higher. Okay. And the reason for that is if it's a 1 or a 2-star artifact, the activation chance for the team buff. Jorgen here gives his entire team magic attack. Kira gives her entire team physical attack. Celeste gives her entire team magic attack. Once you get to 3-star, that becomes a 100% chance. Now, it doesn't increase the chance if you go to 4, 5, or 6-star. It just increases the amount of the team buff, much like leveling up the item itself from level 1 all the way up to level 100. But getting it to at least a 3-star artifact weapon, this is where I would spend my coins first and foremost. Yeah. And there are some teams that don't necessarily need all of a hero's in a lineup's team buffs. But if you take a look at the team that I've kind of got built here, the team that I was using was Luther, Anvari, Martha, Satori, Celeste. Okay, so if we take a look at Satori's artifact, he provides magic attack. We just looked at Luther. Luther provides armor. Martha provides armor. Celeste provides magic attack. And then let's show you Anvari's artifacts. Here we go. Provides armor as well. Now, armor buffs are nice, right? They help prevent your team from taking too much damage from physical attacking heroes. But having three on the same team makes it so that every one beyond the first is a little less important. It's a little less important. So even though as a blanket statement, I would say get your primary artifact to 3-star across the board for your 5 main heroes or your 7 main heroes, getting those to 3 stars is going to be incredibly important and an incredibly efficient use of your artifact coins. If you can't get them from the expedition or from the chest, then buying the fragments from the merchant to get them up to at least a 3-star. That's what I would consider the absolute most important. But with that being said, if you have 3 armor artifacts, or there are many other examples of when this might not necessarily be the most efficient way to go. For example, let's say that there's a hero on your team that tends to not ult very frequently, or that takes a long time to ult. Maybe you're going up against a lot of Astaroths and your energy is being burnt, so you don't have the ability to ult that much. Martha, as a general rule, tends to ult a little bit slower than other heroes in the 5th slot just because of her high armor and her high health. Of course, you can artificially keep her numbers low to speed up her ult gain. So maybe it is worth considering then in a 5 hero lineup, like I've got here, Luther, Satori, Celeste, Martha, and Anvari, maybe you don't focus so much on Martha's primary weapon artifacts in favor of maybe boosting your tank's book or your tank's ring. Okay. Now, how I like to play things, how I like to build teams, is I like to focus on the tanks first. I like to focus on the tanks first. Even though there are a lot of hero lineups in this game that do area of effect damage and ignore your tank, I think having a tank that can survive a fight, and I'm talking about any tank. I'm not talking about Astaroth versus Aurora or Corvus versus Cleaver or, Rufus. I'm not talking about any tanks in particular. I like to level up your tanks before everything else. It's just kind of how I've always designed teams, and not just in this game, but like in Final Fantasy games throughout the years. I always like to level up my tank first. I always like to put resources towards the front, and it all obviously costs me some damage output, and it obviously costs me some healing efficiency, but I tend to gravitate more towards boosting my tank's artifacts. Then I tend to go to my primary damage dealer. All right, so the fragments themselves, as you earn them, the weapon fragments are unique to every single hero. The book fragments, there is a handful of heroes that share multiple of about 5 or 6. Does anybody know off the top of your head how many different book fragments there are? I think there's 3 or 6. I can't remember exactly how many there are, but they represent the various combos of the books that you have. And then there are only 3 kinds of rings: the strength, the intelligence, and the agility ring. So if you can, I would recommend focusing all of the strength on your tank, all of the strength medals on your tank, focusing all, and I'm talking about leveling up the tank's ring, because you need medals to level up the ring. Put all of the intelligence medals, the intelligence ring medal, into your primary damage dealer if you are a mage team, or your healer if you're not a mage team, right? And then all of the agility stuff stick into your supports, or your primary damage dealer if you're using Kira or Kark or Yasmin or Dante as your primary damage dealer. Obviously, you're going to want to dump all of the medals into their ring instead. So you can kind of start to spread out your resource spending, right? Focus on your tank first until he's able to stay alive. As you get the unique hero-specific fragments, obviously spend those on the hero that gets them. And the rings, only focus on 3 heroes at a time, and pick the 3 heroes: tank, damage dealer, healer, tank, support, damage dealer, whatever the 3 types of healers are, the 3 types of heroes there are: strength, intelligence, and agility. And then from there, it becomes really muddy and really confusing. The book has 2 stats that generally your hero needs: dodge and health. Okay. But if you take a look at Nebula, and Nebula is a perfect example of this. Nebula wants dodge and health, but she doesn't need dodge and health. Eventually, she will want dodge and health. Should you spend artifact coins to rank up the star rating of this book? Should you spend the scrolls to level up this book? I think it's a low priority, right? Nebula, unless you're using her as a tank, which some people do, Nebula is usually in the middle of a lineup. Her health numbers don't really matter as much, and her dodge numbers don't really matter as much. What really matters for her is her physical attack, because that boosts her abilities, that boosts the reasons why you're there. But if you take a look at a hero like Luther, armor and magic defense are incredibly important and necessary for a tank. Damage dealers, magic penetration, magic attack, very, very important for damage dealers, right? So whenever you start looking at the books and trying to make the decision on which books to level up, again, it gets very muddy and murky, but it's going to vary a lot depending on what team you have. It's going to vary, and no 5 heroes have the same schedule of order of leveling. But I like to, after I've got my tank to a point that he's able to survive, I like to put my book resources into my damage dealer. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Louis says, for artifacts, the effect of star rank and level are multiplied by each other. In practice, there's no point leveling an artifact if it doesn't have high star, and vice versa. Great comment. Great comment. Thank you, Louis. Just like skins, there are artifacts that are going to be more important sooner, and you can maybe focus on some of the other artifacts a little bit later on. Like, depending on where your Satori is in the lineup, maybe you don't necessarily need the armor skin leveled up now. We talked a lot about different skins that don't matter as much. Astaroth is another great example of a hero that's got some skins that maybe aren't that important. Magic attack, because of the low modifier to his skills that magic attack applies to, very low modifiers, right? Then or how much they affect it, I guess, based on the equation, I should say. Magic attack is a lower priority skin. So if we looked at Astaroth's artifacts, if the middle one here was a magic attack based artifact, it would be less important to focus on. But it's, you know, armor and defense, magic defenses, which is important for tanks. So while each hero team has to have its own conversation, this is kind of how I like to level up my team with respect to artifacts.